cool. So I am Cody DePablo.
I am Michael Weatherly, and this is Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast.
Why are you such a... Okay, look, I sometimes I get into my executive frequency, okay, where things are just delivered very like staccato. Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS Rewatch podcast. This week on the show, we're talking Season 3, Episode 21, Bloodbath. A couple enter a room at a Navy lodge and find bloody human body parts. The team investigates. Gibbs and Ducky agree that the scene was a setup. An imbalanced former boyfriend stalks Abby. The gang chase the clues and figure them out. Today we are going to talk about episode 21, Bloodbath, of season 3. And we have a very special guest, not only a friend, a terrific writer, I think one of the super writers for NCIS, and one that you and I hold very close to our heart because he was a big voice for us.
A big
Mr.
voice.
Jesse Stern.
Jesse Stern. Huge
yes,
voice.
A big voice for
I think
us.
that's a great way of putting it. You know, there was a complexity to his understanding of the sort of the nature of our dynamic, but also the nature of who Ziva was, where she was from, where she was grounded in Israel, what her experiences. He understood a lot of what she was withholding, what she would not reveal, why she would not, do things.
But also the complexity of these two characters,
together,
like
right?
How
oil and water,
why
oil
it kind
and
of
water.
why that whole thing worked. Shall we do a little flashback?
Oh, let's go in the flashback machine. I love this part. We're both putting on our glasses. I love this.
At the time of this, yes, me too. At the time of this episode's release on April 25th, 2006, Osama bin Laden called for jihad against crusaders in Darfur.
Yes, he did. And Bruce Springsteen released his 14th studio album, We Shall Overcome, The Seeger Sessions.
Oh, God. Don't you just love him?
Yep.
I love him.
I like him more than you know.
Tom Cruise. Oh, I know.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise
that?
toured
Is he an actor?
Europe. Oh, my God. He's like, quintessential action star.
He looks a little like Mark Harmon.
That guy's been around. That guy's been around forever. And
what did he do on April 25th?
Tom Cruise toured Europe in preparation for the premiere of Mission Impossible 3.
He toured Europe
Wow.
in one day. That's the important thing to remember. It all happened on April 25th. He toured the entire continent of Europe in one day.
You're kidding me.
I'm kidding you.
Episode synopsis. Ducky and Jimmy try to solve a jigsaw puzzle composed of body parts. Someone tries to kill Abby, and we meet her crazy ex. Gibbs goes into angry dad mode. McGee tries to be supportive of Abby, and we glean some insight into their relationship. Ooh-ah. What do you remember about this episode? Bloodbath.
Ducky and Jimmy do the jigsaw puzzle thing with all the different pieces of the bodies.
So named by the Europeans in the late 1760s. They used to take maps and cut them up into irregular pieces for their children to reassemble.
And trying to count how many bodies
Can
are.
I just say that this is an episode that I had not seen in a very, very long time. And I had so much fun watching P. Perrette do this.
Yes.
She was terrific in this. She was funny. She was compelling. She, you understand why the audience loved her so much. There's this sense of you just want to hug. You just want to hug her. You just want to tell her that everything's okay. I loved the scenes between Mark Harmon and her. I love how you really get to see and explore that kind of father-daughter relationship, which is really sweet. And that scene in the elevator when he's like, nothing's going to happen to you, Abs, I thought that was a really sweet moment.
Did you know that only 5 of the 2.5 million deaths every year occur in elevators?
No. Another thing about this episode, I'm wondering how deep to go here. Well, it is interesting that they have, because of course it just makes sense, but you never necessarily think about it. Someone needs to clean up the crime scene. there is crime. There are companies that deal with the hazardous materials of a crime scene cleanup.
Isn't that like a Pulp Fiction thing, the cleaner? I mean, it's a different thing, obviously.
Yes, but
the idea of the cleanup, the cleaner.
The cleanup. I will just say that one time I, in real life, was around a cleanup team, and it was my real life that there was something unfortunate that had happened. But the people gathered in the parking lot around the truck and the team, and I was dressed with gloves and a duct tape actually around the glove to the sleeve and everything. And they were like, and I was very sad, obviously, because someone had passed away, and everyone was like, "Denozo, are you guys shooting an episode?" Because it looked like a crime scene in real life. Just one of those things that happens where the lines blur, but sometimes the lines are very,
I'm
very
sorry
rigid.
you had to go through that.
Yeah.
That's not, I do remember that happening to you. I won't go into detail, obviously, because that is your private life, but I do remember you coming to set and just being very, very affected by that episode in your life. And you took it with you and you did something quite beautiful with it later on. Oh my God. Okay, this is one of those things that happens during the show, which is a real character thing, and it's a very interesting beat because you get to see a part of McGee that you rarely see.
Where are you going?
To get my toothbrush.
No, you're not leaving the apartment.
Why not, McGee?
And that part of McGee that you rarely see gets activated by a person that he has very complex feelings for. So the idea that he has this like fatherly moment with her is the idea that, it's the thing that most women want to see when they are with someone they love and when they choose a partner, to feel protected, And it's such a cool thing because it is such a, I think it's such a cool McGee moment.
Yes. McGee is, again, a character that we keep peeling the onion and learning more and more and more about through, like we all do, through other characters, and seeing that true nurturing part of him, but that protective part of him. I like
Very much a protective part of him. And, that kind of fatherly thing is like, you don't open the door for anyone. And how funny is that she does it 3 times. And then the third or the second time she opens it, it's this ex-boyfriend who just so happens to be a little cray-cray.
In this way back that we're doing with this wonderful podcast and all of the stories that we've heard and the reminiscence that we've engaged in, I remember this episode because parts of it were shot where the wardrobe department was. They turned it into a set. We shot some of these sets on our stages in practical areas where people had to walk around and walk through. And so when we were shooting, I think one of the crime scene situations, you would have people coming in for a wardrobe fitting and they would have to walk through this set where there's like gore and blood and bodies and the whole thing. And they're like,
that is so weird that you remember that, because I don't remember this at all. And I think you and I have talked about that phenomena that happens every once in a while. You do so much of this that there are moments that you're like, that I don't know why, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah.
It's not weird. I remember the episode. I remember moments about the episode. And when I watched the episode, I remember thinking like, what a great episode and what a great moment to sort of see like McGee protect Paulie. And it was an Abby Sciuto centric episode, and it was so good.
And do you remember when we would go and shoot in different motels around the area?
Did you request this specific room when you called the lodge?
No, we requested the one with the eviscerated squirrels, but this is all they had.
What the hell kind of question is that?
And we would roll in.
I do remember that.
But there were people staying in the motel. So we would show up with all of our police cars and the MCRT, Major Case Response Team vehicle, and we're all out there with federal agent jackets. Can you imagine waking up in a motel? You went to bed the night before, and then when you get up in the morning, you're like, and it looks like maybe there's been a mass murder in your motel.
Yeah.
And there's like body bags and gurneys.
Thank God they quickly see just a bunch of cameras and a crew, and hopefully,
and then
because,
they see Mark Harmon.
We were shooting in California. They're like, oh, and then they see Mark Harmon. Oh my God, that's NCIS.
His eyes are so blue. This is a little thing that came up. If Gibbs has a father-like role on the team, how would you describe his individual father-child relationship with the children? And I think this is a great, it was a little question posed by some people on our staff. What do you think the different Gibbs relationship is? Does he have a favorite child?
You know what? I don't think he has a favorite child. And that's a really good question, because oftentimes I've thought, well, does he? And then the more you see the show go on, the more you realize that he has really deep love for all of these quote unquote children. It manifests very differently, but it doesn't mean he doesn't love them or he doesn't want to protect them. I think the entire thing with Gibbs is protection. The entire thing with Gibbs is no one will touch anyone, any of the guys on my team.
Or at least that's his goal and his aim, but you can't protect everyone. He couldn't protect Kate. He lives with not being able to protect his own wife and child. So he, as a father,
which is why that is emphasized, because he couldn't do it, he will always try very hard and put himself in, which is, we always go back and we analyze the sort of the honor code, right? Like his value system. And you and I have always talked about how at times it goes gray. And I think it's because, yet again, not to reference the movie, but the beekeeper, that whole thing about like law and justice, I think he will always go for justice. And I think at times he will go, I know that's the law. And I know that I'm supposed to follow the law because that's what I do. But every once in a while, I'm going to kind of turn a blind eye to the law, and I'm going to veer on the side of justice.
And again,
that's, I think, the thing.
Right. This doesn't mean that this is how we should conduct ourselves in everyday life. These are stories that are told for entertainment purposes. My disclaimer for...
I was listening to that podcast, and you know what? They encouraged me to do this.
No, we did not.
No, we did not.
And so that brings us to our very special guest, and who we will now talk with, executive producer, writer, and man with a beard, Jesse Stern.
No!
What's going on?
Gandalf!
I knew the best plan was not to warn you what I looked like.
No, we actually debated this right before we got a good look at you, and we were like, what's this guy going to look like?
Part of your introduction is that you're the Gandalf / Obi-Wan Kenobi of NCIS, and you've just absolutely solidified that.
Yeah.
Well, happy to deliver.
If NCIS were a cult, you would be its leader.
Just based on the beard. I want to know, where are you? Where the hell are you?
My girlfriend and I just spent 3.5 months in India, and we just arrived in Spain a couple of days ago.
Where in Spain, if you may disclose the location of your whereabouts?
We're on Ibiza, in the north of Ibiza right now.
Well, that's not bad. You're going to start partying soon, and that beard is going to come in very handy.
Yeah. They called me Alibaba in India. It was great.
It's been a while, huh? I think how long? How many years before? Since we've all three been together.
Oh, it had to be pre-pandemic.
Many years.
It's been so long that all three of us have seen gray come into our hair.
Well, and our beards.
Well, you don't have a beard.
Well, you don't know it. We're going to dive into why you were one of our favorite writers, and also why you were such a big part of creating this this interaction between Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David, and also why you became such a passionate figure in our lives.
I'm comfortable covering all these subjects.
Yeah, so let's begin with I mean, it's interesting. How did you find yourself coming into NCIS? What's your memories of the sort of point of entry?
You know, my first experience with NCIS, I remember when I was first having a shot at staffing on a show. I had an agent. I really, it was the first year I might have gotten a job. And they sent me a stack of scripts of all the pilots. This is back when there was still pilot season. And I remember reading all the pilots, and in the pile of pilots was an episode of Jag. And I remember being really confused. What is this Jag episode doing in here? And I read it. And I have a distinct memory of sitting in a chair in my front yard, my old house, reading this NCIS thing, and I didn't know what it was. And then, the show appeared on TV by magic, and I was staffed on a different show, and I met a producer who she was at Paramount, and she was like, they take pitches over at NCIS, and that was a big deal. A lot of places didn't have an open door policy like that to take pitches from aspiring writers, and I had never seen an episode of NCIS. And I remember distinctly saying, I guess it's just like CSI in the Navy. And they sent me the pitch packet, and the first line of the pitch packet was, NCIS is not CSI in the Navy. So I really didn't know what it was. But I was sitting in my office trying to come up with stories, and I heard a story on the radio, and I thought that's a cool story. I could put that on a Navy base, and I bet I could pitch that to NCIS. And so I did. And I went in, I met with, I think it was Gil Grant, and I told Gil Grant, my ideas for pitches. One of them was the one I'd heard on the radio, and another one was about how koalas have fingerprints like humans and can frequently be mistaken for humans. So I had a story about a koala getting smuggled on board a submarine, and there was an outbreak of chlamydia because koalas carry chlamydia. And Gil thought that was terrible. And he was like, no, don't pitch that. Pitch the other one. So a week later, I'm sitting outside Don Bellisario's office waiting for a meeting, and I hear him in there. He's talking on the phone, and I hear him saying, yeah, I'm about to hear some pitches. And I distinctly heard pitches, plural. And I was like, I have one pitch. I'm about to walk in this room with one pitch. And I very quickly, I'm thinking in my head, what other things have I written that I can force into the Navy? And I go in there and I pitch Don. And I think I probably told you this story before, but I get about 5-10 minutes into the pitch, and his eyes close, and his head slumps over to the side, just drifts over. And I think I'm losing him. I think he's falling asleep. And so I speed up, and I get to the twist, and I go, and his eyes shoot open, and he shoots up, and he goes, I didn't see that coming. I'd like to see what happens. And then he started talking about other things, and I think he forgot I was in his office still, and a few minutes later he was at his computer researching Armenian genocide, and Gil Grant is like, let's go. And I'm like, what do you mean? Aren't we still in the meeting? He's like, no, it's over. You sold it. And we get out in the hallway, and he's like, how does that feel? I was like, how does what feel? He's like, you just made $30,000. And I was like, when? When did that happen? And he's like, well, when he said he wants to see what happens, that means now you go write it. And I was like, I've never seen the show. What do you mean go write it? And don't you have a staff? He's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You just go write it. So I went and I wrote an episode of NCIS. I watched a whole bunch of them. I wrote an episode of NCIS in a weekend. It was over Memorial Day weekend. Must have been 2004, 20 years ago. And I sent this script in, and I got back 2 notes. The 2 notes I got back were, Tony likes movies. That was the first note. And the second note was, and let's see if we can get a 4th act out of the kid. I think I was the kid. So I rewrote it. I sent it in. Don called me in for a meeting, and I'd already taken a job on another show, and he said, well, when that gets canceled, because they all do except for mine, you come back here and I'll give you a job. And I'm working on this other show. The other show was like the last place show on network television. We were getting no viewers. I think we've got like, I don't know, a couple million viewers. And a woman who lived on my street who worked on NCIS, she worked in the art department, she's walking her dog, and she sees me and she says, hey, we just got a script with your name on it. First I'd heard of it. I had no idea. They just had pulled it down off the shelf. John Kelly had given it a fourth act. And they shot it, and that was forced entry.
DeNozo.
I'm investigating here. These letters speak to the suspect's state of mind.
I've read them, and they're all pretty much the same.
Well, I've only read 2, and if you think they're all the same, then we definitely need to talk.
And I remember
entry,
it aired the same night as the other show I was working on. The other show I was working on got 2 million viewers. That episode got like 14 or 15 million viewers. And this like light bulb went off inside my head of like, oh, that's better. Much better.
This one will repeat, and I'll make a WGA repeat salary on that one. Little did
people
you know,
actually cared about that show.
Yeah, it is the legacy of the show, and as you know, all around the world, people in different cultures, people for different reasons. But what would you say is that? I mean, you're in India. I know that the show was successful in India, Japan, all across the different parts of Asia and Africa and South America. I met a Russian couple in the lobby of a hotel in Paris. And when the woman started getting very excited and she ran up to her room so I could autograph her CD, her DVD collection that she had, he goes, I want you to know you are ruining my entire vacation. She just sit and watch. She do nothing but sit and watch these fucking show, these Gibbs, these Abby with the pigtail, ridiculous. You are ruining my life with this shit. And I was like, thank you. That's awesome. You mean your Russian wife is interested in crimes in the Navy and Marine Corps?
You and I have probably kept in touch because of hotels that I've been in where I turn on the TV, and I remember it happening in Barcelona. It happened. I think it happened. I was in Italy one time. And I turn on the TV, and it's one of ours. And you know, you don't even have to change the channel. It's just, I think it's perennially on every hotel television.
What was the show that you watched? You watched every show. Was it Hill Street Blues or MASH? Or you watched and you were like, this is the show. It has a sort of revolving door of characters, but the tone is the show.
That was, I think it was after season 6 when the show was the #1 show. And I remember just pacing around all the time because there were a bunch of people who worked on the show who didn't want to be #1 because they were like, okay, if we get to #1, there's only one way to go, and that's down. And I would have these arguments in the hallway. I was like, no, get to #1 and just be #1 forever. And I was pacing around trying to figure out, okay, we're at season 6. We're going to get to season 7. But how do we get past season 10? And you and I would have these conversations of like, what does it take to get past season 10? Because there's not a lot of shows do that. And I was talking about Law and Order all the time, and I was talking about MASH. And so I went and I watched every episode of MASH over the summer because I was like, it's similar. You know, we have MASH takes a drama and puts it inside a comedy. We were taking a comedy and putting it inside a drama. You know, there was the same life or death stakes. There was a military component. There was commentary on America. It was character oriented above all else, and the relationships driving everything. And I was like, okay, well, how did MASH get, you know, how did they survive, you know, losing major characters and finding new people to take their place and elevate the show still? So yeah, I watched every episode of MASH. I want to
bring something to the forum. Your process as a writer was unlike a lot of other writers. You really became quite the method writer during your writing bouts, which could, by the way, last for days upon days with no sleep. And then you would show up to like a table read looking, like you haven't taken a shower and you're wearing like a hoodie and you're pissed at the world and somehow you're pissed at us for no reason. And then we'd read this fabulous script, but you really kind of lived these episodes as you were writing them. And I remember once trying to like kind of get in your head and just say like, dude, why are you so why are you so caught up in this? And you were like opened up your eyes. And it was this thing that you were trying to explain that was the way that you really kind of lived it.
Unfortunately, and I haven't been able to correct this, there's really only one way I know how to do anything. It's all in. It's just, I had to really care. And there was a moment, on NCIS, I remember exactly where I was. We were still at the old Sunset Gower Studios. And I used to pace around there were all sorts of hidden tunnels and passageways in Sunset Gower left over from the Adolf Zukor days. And I used to kind of, find my way around the back of the studio. And I found this secret bathroom. So it was like nobody else went there.
Did that become your office?
Secret it was my like sanctuary. When the office was too insane, I would go to this bathroom. And I remember I was working my way there and I was thinking of a story. And I had this moment where it really in that moment shifted from being a job to being, home, where I was like, oh, I can tell my stories here. Like this, anything I'm coming up with, I can tell it here. There's an avenue for it. There's a character for it. There's a place for anything that was popping into my head. And from that moment on, and I think that was in season 4 or 5, it had to be everything or nothing.
I think that was the difference because I have to say, like, of course, we loved all the writers, but there was something about you, and I think I could speak for Michael as well. You had become like a friend in many ways, and I knew, for example, that when you were going to take a script and you were going to write my character in particular, or Michael's character in particular, I know that you had an insight to our voice, which to us became this really kind of thrilling thing. Like we grew as actors with your scripts because you tapped into the essence of what we believed was, I could say it for me, for Ziva, what I believed the character was. And so when you left, I remember thinking, this is a huge loss. And I remember feeling like it's a huge loss. I just lost somebody that really wrote the essence of what I believed the character was really well.
Okay, now I'm going to cry.
No, I didn't mean it that way. But I think Michael and I really thought of you as not just our friend, but somebody that really understood the relationship of these two characters really well, the intricacy of it, the complexity of it, the thing that made it sort of dynamic, the thing that made us both kind of tick. And it was a really it was a balancing act that wasn't as simple as people thought it was. And you got that. And I mean, without shame in the game, but you were one of my favorite writers. And when you left, for me personally, it was a huge loss.
Well, there was a thing that happened in there. And to go back to what you were saying about when I would show up at the table reads looking exhausted, it wasn't by choice that I was writing like 7 or 8 episodes a season. Like 6 and 7, there was people at that point thought that NCIS was a well-oiled machine. And I think you too can probably speak to the fact that it was perennially chaotic. Like there was always chaos, no matter what era.
I think the chaos served a little bit of that tension that was also bred within the show. You know what I mean? Like it kind of kept that bar like vibrating at that frequency, because if not, there was no tension.
I do take your point there, Jesse, because I've heard so many people come in. We'd had Matt Jones the other day. We talked to Matt, and he was basically saying when he walked onto the set and he looked around and he saw that we were out of our fucking minds, he was like, oh, this isn't, and there wasn't another, and I've, before that and subsequently done other shows. I mean, when I got out of the car in the morning and walked onto the set, oftentimes I had kind of glanced over and kind of reviewed, like I knew we were in the squad room and I knew, but Mike Archer, my stand-in, would hand me the sides and he'd go, big speech on page 2. And I'd go, ah, shit. And then I'd kind of like lift it up and look at it because we were going to be shooting it in less than an hour.
Oh,
right?
I had one of those mornings. I remember I'm driving up to Valencia and I get a call from First AD that's like, Paulie's on set and she's calling for you. She needs you. And I'm like, I'm 15 minutes away and I'm, pedal to the metal, flying up there. And they call again. She's like, Paulie really needs you. She's calling for you. You got to get over there. And I park the car. I run out of the car. I run over to the lab set. I get to the door. I'm standing there. They've just finished, blocking rehearsal. It's one of these things where it's Abby in the lab with one of these and then one line from Gibbs and then another one of these. And I'm saying, I'm like, what is it? And she looks over at me and she just goes, fuck you. And I just fall over. I just fall over laughing. I'm like, that's it? She's like, yeah, that's it. You can go. It was the sum total of the conversation.
You were one of the few writers that we could have an emotional, friendly, safe battle with about what's going on in the script, about what served the characters. And you were, wait, was there like a story at one point that I always pitch you shit for that you like threw a chair? Wait, remember like in the cafeteria, like you grabbed a chair or something? I was like, Chelsea, like you don't have to throw a chair. Like, you don't remember this? I remember it clearly. And you were like, I'm not throwing a chair. Like you were almost correcting the behavior. You're like, no, that's not happening. I remember you as being very combustible, very like intense about it. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I've never met a writer who's just like, so intense about stuff that it's just, it was very different.
That was, to be honest, that was why I left, was because I couldn't do that anymore. Like you and I would get into these things, all three of us, we would get into these things and we would mix it up. And me and Binder would get into these things and we would mix it up and we would like really defend our positions really aggressively. And as a result, we would dig something deeper out and we kept trying, crazier shit. We kept trying to go deeper and see what else the show could do. And eventually, the administration's changed over there and, sometimes the corners get knocked off of things and ultimately got to a place where it wasn't happening anymore. Like,
right.
The moment for me where I couldn't do it anymore was on, Michael's first directing episode.
Liver?
Spleen.
Of course.
Interest?
Psycho.
Aren't they all?
The movie, Palmer.
And there was a scene in there where Gibbs was supposed to hit Tony in the back of the head way too hard. And it was witnessed, by the new agent. And it was going to play as this sequence where she comes up to Tony afterwards and it's just like, what the fuck is that? This guy's hitting you in the office? You're going to put up with that? And it was to start this entire dynamic of like Tony questioning whether he wants to be subservient to Gibbs anymore, whether he wants to break out on his own. Here's this other woman who's got her own team. He's going to start to gravitate towards her. And then her entire team was going to get killed. And Tony was left like, oh my God, there's still things to learn from Gibbs. So it was violent and it was emotional. And the entire arc only worked if there was this traumatic moment between Gibbs and Tony. And I spent hours in the editing room on that scene, just on the beat by beat of it, just exactly how he's going to hit him. And it was funny because when we were shooting that scene, Michael's directing, Harmon was in a contract negotiation. So in between, he's out on the phone with his agent and with Les Moonves, and he's coming back in, and he was putting some stank on that head slap.
Have you noticed the new girl likes to shower here before she goes home?
Hey, did you hear me?
So we had some really good violence on camera, and because Michael was directing himself, he was encouraging. You were encouraging him. You were like, no, that's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you say, there were a lot of moments there where, like, and I can say again, like Mark Harmon would be really nice to somebody as you were getting, like, some guest star actor kid doing an interrogation scene. You'd be like, where are you from? He's like, I actually grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. He's like, oh, Bethesda, Maryland. So you have military in the family? Or he's like, actually, it's Defense Department and it's the State Department. And, oh, okay. But serving military, it's like, no, more than, and he would lure them into this false sense that, like, Mark Harmon gave two shits about Bethesda, Maryland, or where they were from, whatever. And he'd lull them into almost a kind of like, wow, I can't believe how nice Mark Harmon is. And then action, Billy Webb's Got His Steadicam on, and Mark goes, wham, and smashes the table. And you just see the kid go, and he goes, so you were on that ship and you didn't see anything. That's your story and you're sticking to it. Try me. And like, this kid's like, is that the first line of the scene? Which it is. It's just when they rehearsed it, that's not how it was like, so this is your story and you're sticking to it? Well, once you add violence to the table and Mark Harmon's eyes staring at you, it's a different scene. And that was what the show, to your point about the head slap, it was like a destabilizing moment, a holy shit moment. When Ziva pushes Tony to the ground and takes her gun out and puts it in his chest. Like, that's your partner. Like, and you're at Mossad and no one's going to stop it. They're like, oh, that Ziva is doing that thing again.
Was that Aliyah? God, I remember breaking that episode.
It's not that he's dead. It's that your Mossad boyfriend got his ass kicked by a chump like me.
You took advantage of him.
He attacked me. What was I supposed to do?
Yeah, that was a good one.
But you also would kill characters.
Which takes us
not
to
just guest star characters, but you would take you would take us. I think Mike Frank's "Dead in the Rain on a Street" comes to mind.
Oh my God, that was one of those ones. Gary Glassberg, rest in peace, handed me that assignment. He said, "We're going to kill Mike Frank," and Frank's hadn't been in an episode that season, and I was just like, "Are you kidding? We're going to bring the guy in just to kill him off?" I'm like, that everyone's going to see it coming. It's not the way to do it. So I tried to talk him out of that decision, but he was determined that we were going to kill Mike Franks. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, and that was my last script, I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in a
swan song, right?
Swan song, yeah.
My name is Mike Franks. I figure I got one more fight left in me.
I'm going to do it in a way you don't see coming, and I'm going to do it in a way where the actor can come back.
Well, I mean, he was one of my favorite characters.
Not a lot of people smoke on camera, but when you see Muse Watson, like
with that voice,
I remember having to kill Shepard, Lauren Holly,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was with Judgment Day, that was a strange time because that was like right after we came out of this writer's strike, and we had to finish up like 9 episodes in the time that we had to do 6. And I just had back surgery. So there was I couldn't walk. And so the kid from the office, one of the PAs, would pick me up at home and take me to the office. And I would lay on a couch in the office with like 3 whiteboards. And I think Binder was writing Judgment Day and Shane was writing something. And we would walk around. I would push these whiteboards down the hallway and like try to figure out which actors we can have on which days because we're shooting 2 units and a splinter all the time. And in the middle of that, we're like, okay, this is Lauren Holly's last episode. Yeah. And I just remember saying, okay, well, Blaze of Glory. She's got to go out and Blaze of Glory.
And she did, and she did. Question, Jesse. Favorite NCIS episodes? Which ones come to mind?
That I wrote or that somebody else wrote?
Whatever. Well, okay, we could do both. Okay.
The favorites that I wrote, favorites that I wrote, Truth or Consequences, Heartland, and probably Cloak. Those were, I think they were turning points for various reasons.
It is justified.
Get over yourself.
I have.
Truth or Consequences was one of my favorite episodes in the history of NCIS.
You know, very rarely does a plan come together as well as that one did. Like, I remember pitching that episode to Shane at the end of season 6, and pitching that, you know, Ziva was going to be abducted. And, you know, Shane, to his credit, whenever I would pitch him things about Ziva, he would get such a long view. He would always get this long view. You know, Cody and I had a conversation about singing very early on. I think it was in season 4, maybe in between season 4 or 5, around season 5. And I didn't know that you could sing. And it just, you know, took root. And North and I started talking about it, and we were like, oh, that would make a great image for the season premiere, is you're in this nightclub and you come up on this, you know, this singer. I think we even pitched a blue dress, if that's possible. And you reveal it's Ziva.
Is made from honey, slow and sweet. Only the fools know what it means.
And then the thing blows up. And I remember North and I pitching that to Shane, and Shane's immediate reaction was like, he would do this thing where you'd look out the window and you'd like see the chessboard in the distance. And he was like, well, then we're going to have to do Tiva. And I remember just being like, what do you mean then we're going to have to do Tiva? What's wrong with that? Wait a second. Aren't we already doing it? Hasn't that been happening since Undercovers? I mean, I wasn't here season 3, but I'm pretty sure that's already been moving. And he would take this long view on that. So I remember that was a big deal when he was like, okay, we're going to do that.
You know, that's really funny you bring that up, because I remember when they said, hey, you know, we want you singing, you know, and what you don't know is that Ziva sings. And I was like, oh, come on, really? Like, really? Like, I was in a way, I was like, what? He doesn't sing. Like, I was like, Cody sings, Ziva doesn't sing, you know, and I was kind of a little bit like, I resisted it. I think it was actually a really great moment, but there are a lot of moments that I resisted because, well, just because my instinct was to say, like, why should she sing? I mean, she's not like a, you know, it's not like a musical about assassins, you know what I mean? But anyway, I went with it.
Getting into your process and understanding like what would fire your jets, like the things that you would get excited about, it was really fun. Because, you know, it's a 22, 24 episode season. It was a marathon every season. And, you know, there's always these ups and downs. There's times where people need a rest, you know, and that's a good opportunity for an episode where you're just, you know, servicing the plot. It's not heavy on your character, but too many of those in a row and you get bored and you start to tune out. So I remember just constantly like monitoring where you guys were at, like in terms of hunger. Like, do you want to eat right now or do you want to sit and rest for a second? And Cody, I remember having conversations with you where like, I was like, do you want to know what's coming? Because Michael always wanted to know what's coming. Michael always wanted to know.
But Michael and I were very different people, but also worked very much the same, you know?
You would not really want to know what was coming like 3 episodes down the line unless it was something you needed to know. And it was like, if you really needed to know it. And I remember when there was a big Cody or a big Ziva thing coming, I'd be like, all right, there's a thing coming. It's about 3 episodes off. And I would see you get like excited again. All right. So okay, what's coming down the line? And then you would start asking me questions. I was like, oh, okay. But then I remember when I pitched the Truth or Consequences of Shane's immediate reaction being like, you know what this means for Ziva? Like she's abducted in a terrorist camp, and telling you about it, and you had the same reaction. Like, you know what they do to women in these terrorist camps?
I do remember having this conversation with somebody on the show, and I remember saying something along the lines of, you do know what happens to women. And their answer was like, oh no, these are very good boys. And I remember
these are the good terrorists.
And I just remember going, nah. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And, no harm done, obviously. And then I just kind of went back to my trailer and I was like, I can't go that route. Like there's only one. There's only, and then of course, the other thing is if they're not going to write for it, then at some point you have to make a decision. Where does it live? And if you're just going to pretend that everything's okay, when does she crack? Yeah. Because you can't possibly go through something like that and pretend that nothing's happened. You can do it for a little while and then you crack.
That was one of the best conversations that Binder and I had, and we used to, we would write separately, and every now and again Steve would call me in, like ask for a twist in the fourth act, like if something I hadn't read, and I would call him in and ask for something. But we never wrote together on a script. But season 7, I did Truth or Consequences, and he was doing the second episode. We knew, okay, you have to address this. And we had so many conversations. It was like, we would go back and forth to the point where like a couple of the other writers, like George and Frank, started mediating because me and Steve were just like screaming at each other in the office of like how it would play. And it was funny because like we didn't care we were screaming at each other. We were like brothers, but it got a little loud. So I remember ultimately sitting in an office, the entire staff is in there, and it's just, me and Steve going back and forth, and George and Frank being like, Steve's the one who's got to write it. He's going to have to write it. So he's going to get to choose how it goes. And he found really best kind of direction.
When I think about Truth or Consequences and our conversations about it before then, at the time, and afterwards, now in retrospect with all these years, and how important also Dennis Smith was as part of that process.
Oh, yeah.
The show was, because NCIS LA was premiering after us, there was an opportunity for a new audience that might be coming in to check out LL Cool J and Chris O'Donnell, who maybe weren't native to JAG or the NCIS shows on USA Network, which had become a thing at that point. So there was this notion of the show being a kind of soft entry point. We're going character by character. We're telling you who everybody is. We're telling you what the dynamics are. But there was also trying to replace Ziva. And that is subtly, or not so subtly, saying she's irreplaceable. Like, we can have let me show you how hard it is to, and so it was kind of like going into the special sauce ingredient list, and you were kind of elucidating, like, this is why Abby is important. This is why Ducky is important. This is why, and to me, the cherry on top is magical Gibbs. Because Gibbs suddenly appearing a mile and a half away and shooting
the hero,
guy right through and then appearing seconds later as if he was the Bionic Man in his ghillie suit. But that's Magic Gibbs. And if I've had people say, like, there's no way he could have made it that far. It's like, but that's the show. And Dennis Smith, an ornery character in his own right, and also has been a guest on this show. But Dennis protected your words and your script and your vision. Do you feel that by doing these things in kind of one shot?
Dennis and I got on so well, and there have been multiple times working with Dennis where I've been in the meat grinder over a script, because you got to pitch these things, you got to write the outline, you got to get approval, everybody's got to sign off. And they frequently would have things in it that people had questions about, of like, is this the way to go? Is this going too far? Is this violating, whatever? And Dennis, there would always be a time during pre-production where he would just look at me and he would just say, I got it. And I was done. Like, I was done. Like, I didn't have to work anymore. Like, if Dennis got it, I didn't have to do anything. So, like, I didn't really have to show up to the set when we were shooting. When he got it, it was locked.
And you saw two transitions. You saw from Belisario to Shane and from Shane to Gary. What was that transition like from Don to Shane that you remember?
Oh my God. When I remember the day Don was walking out and he walked from office to office to see everybody. It was the first time he'd ever been in my office. And he walked in and, I was like, so you're really leaving, huh, Don? And he's like, yeah. And I said something like, well, maybe this was the only way to get out of here. Like as if he would have stayed until the grave. And he looked at me like he wanted to crush me. Like he wanted to absolutely destroy me. But then, he's like, man, maybe you're right. Maybe there's something else to do. And he left, and I went in to meet with Shane because John Kelly left at the same time. And we're talking about my favorite episodes. At that point, all my favorite episodes were the ones that broke the formula, the Kill Aries and the Bête Noire. That was another one I liked. The ones that were different, and they were all John or Don episodes. And I said to Shane, I was like, who's going to write all the ones that Don and John used to write? And Shane goes, I don't know, maybe you. And I just started pitching. I just started pitching for the next 45 minutes. I was like, I took him seriously. I was like, oh, really? Like that, there's an opening there? And I just started pitching. And in the next 45 minutes, I pitched 9 episodes that we do in the next season and a half.
Wow.
I pitched what became like Heartland, Requiem. I pitched a thing with Tony's father that ended up becoming Gibbs's father. I pitched like Cloak and Dagger. I pitched all this stuff just off the, Corporal Punishment. I think that was another one I pitched at the time. Like this is what I do. And then
what we realized is that Kill Ari 1 and 2 is the beginning of season 3, and Hiatus 1 and 2 is the end of season 3. And so Don bookended his season with 2-parters. Which is one of the reasons I think that season stands and holds together so well. Season 3 is a really kind of kooky ride. It's got model behavior in it, which is like, hi, David North. It's totally insane. I mean, and then it has.
That's a perfect example, though. He wrote that on spec as a PA on the show. It was in a drawer. And the show hit the wall and didn't have anything to shoot. And North pulls it out of a drawer and goes, what about this? And they shot it. And that was how he became a writer on the show. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere else.
And now the showrunner of NCIS Origins.
Yeah. What a story.
Which I cannot wait. I cannot wait to watch and see how that thing unfolds. That's going to be fantastic. Well, I find this kind of a fascinating place to wind it up, which is there's no question as in terms of like the architecture plans of Tony and Ziva, which, sort of began with an audition where Cody and I and our temperaments clashed and met and have continued to flash around each other. But you were very much a part of that initial architecture, and so many of the, it wasn't heart to heart. It wasn't some Joni Loves Chachi shallow kind of thing. It's and I think anyone that has an understanding of the show, I met a 22-year-old young lady the other day in Boston who freaked out about the new NCIS Tony and Ziva show. And I said, what do you think of the title? And she said, it's fantastic. It's what it is. Tony and Ziva. If you know what Tony and Ziva is, it's the best title ever because that's what you want. Sometimes you want a pastrami sandwich and you don't need to call it like the club footer. Just call it a pastrami sandwich. But the characters, Tony and Ziva, so, each of them is not some linear, one-dimensional thing. And you were such a huge part. I would say that Don definitely was in love with the characters and the
he was
exploration of that. But now that Cody and I are going to Budapest to start our the thing that I mean, how many times did the three of us sit and talk about how can we make a Tony and Ziva show? What would that look like? How could we do it? And for us to actually have the opportunity for Paramount Plus to make that, and Dennis Smith is directing the last 2 of the 10.
Amazing.
And your name, I want you to know, was part of so many of the conversations that Cody and I had.
Oh my God.
And
so
many. And in talking to John McNamara, where, he was like, oh, buddy, I just watched Truth or Consequences. Holy shit. And I was like, yeah, holy shit. By the way, there's a few other ones. And so I think for the writing staff of this show, there are, I think your episodes are the ones that are the real salient points. And so I hope in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we all do get to be involved in this world together again. Hopefully we create some good space and some good energy, and we bring all of these incredibly positive stories into the next whatever you want to call it, the next chapter of an NCIS multiverse. But I just want to thank you for always being the shining North Star of those characters and of all the stuff we talked about, fighting for your truth, fighting for your point of view. And also when it's time to go away and you see that a turn needs to be made, get in that van, speak clearly and honestly, and then see you later. I think you're just a class act, Mr. Stern, and I love you.
I love you too.
Did you
man.
think this was going to be such a love fest?
I can't believe you guys are doing this. Well, this was bizarre.
It's always bizarre when the three of us come together. It's bizarre, but it's loving. It's lovingly bizarre.
Really a lot of fun.
Cody DePablo, was that incredible?
Oh my God. Isn't it so funny how sometimes you're like, hey, we're going to talk to somebody that we haven't spoken about for a long time. And then all of a sudden you get in the room and you're like, love fest.
Love to the fest, to the love.
And this is a person who was my friend. He was your friend. He was a very good friend of yours. And I know for a fact that you were such close friends.
That when I got a DUI, he picked me up from the police station.
Well, but not only that, he was such a good friend that you are able to have horrible disagreements in life and get back together and do a podcast with them and still love them and honor them for who they are and were.
Absolutely. And a lot of gratitude as people with strong opinions. We can occasionally, push a boundary, but I think there's nothing in life that has the rigidity or the straight line or the absoluteness, even afterlife, some would argue, not to get all Shirley MacLaine about it, but
please, let's get Shirley MacLaine about it because I do love her so much.
But I do think that one of the things that we learn as we get older is that fear is can really drive a wedge.
Oh, yeah.
Between you and other people or you and yourself. And I know that over the last 7 years, as we all went through COVID-19, we all went through lots of different wild political and cultural shifts and movements. The world has had a big shakeup.
Can I say something that I no one knows I'm going to say it, and I'm going to go out on a little limb here. You are really good about keeping in touch with people. And one of the main reasons we have some of the guests we've had here, it's because you are able to grab your phone and text them. And most of the people that we've had get back to you immediately because they love you.
That is a lovely thing to hear from a friend. And I have an attitude of gratitude today.
That's a good one, an attitude of gratitude.
That's
and
where
by
I
the way,
live.
it'll keep you on your toes. Hi!
I think
you have to continue being a good friend, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. You know, Robert Downey Jr. said something in an interview I read recently. He said, if you want to make a friend, be a friend.
Yeah.
And something else was, if you want forgiveness in life, then forgive yourself first. You know, it's, I think a lot of our pointing finger world that we live in right now gets in the way of being able to understand somebody else's point of view, even if it doesn't align with ours. And we should all be able to sit at a big table, and there's a lot of atrocity and a lot of horror, and there's a lot of shadow in the world. We have to acknowledge it, and then we have to, you know, without being kumbaya, we got to hold hands and we got to march into the darkness together, because otherwise, what's a heaven for? Cote de Pablo. I guess
not
that's
deep at all. That was
not
as
deep at all.
superficial as it gets. And on that note,
okay, kids, it is game time, and today we are playing Hijack Hijinks. Kidnappings and taking hostages happens at an alarming rate in the NCIS universe in this game. Let's see if you can name these kidnapping movies.
all right, great. So in this one, Tom Hanks gets kidnapped by pirates. Oh, Castaway. I know this one. Correct?
No, Captain Phillip.
Oh, shit. All right, there you go. Next. In this one, oh God, you read it.
Okay, ready? In this one, the aggrieved father of a kidnapped girl has to use a very particular set of skills to get her back.
Oh, I know this one. This is Liam Neeson, right?
Correct.
Taken.
Nice.
Love it. Brie Larson won an Oscar for this one, where she raises her son whilst being held captive in a shed.
Do you remember that? Wasn't that based on a
I think this was based on a real story. And
on a real, like in Germany or something?
Yes, it was. I researched this for a while. It was really dark. I did.
Well, if you want to know the name of the movie, you just have to think of where he kept her.
Basement?
Room.
The Room. Is that what it's called? Room?
The Room, yeah.
The Room?
No,
Oh,
not
wow.
The Room. I think it's just called Room.
Yeah, because there's another one that's called The Room, and you and I have talked about it. That's another one. In this one, she isn't actually murdered or kidnapped, just gone.
Well, it's called Gone Girl.
Gone Girl. Okay. In this one, Denzel Washington plays an alcoholic, retired CIA agent who goes on a killing spree when a girl he was tasked to protect is kidnapped.
Is that Equalizer?
You know, I'm not sure.
Man on Fire.
There you go.
Man on Fire. Directed by Tony Scott, right?
Tony Scott. How about we go into some fan questions, Cherie?
The FQ section?
Yeah, the FQ. Ooh.
I've just decided to give it that. All right.
You're just gonna...
Linda, Johnson City, Tennessee, writes, I think I had the same ex as Abby, LOL. In all seriousness, though, I really liked his performance. Do you remember acting with him?
I thought he was terrific.
Yep.
I thought he was absolutely terrific.
Fantastic performance. Bo from Newark, Germany. No, that's Delaware. DE is also Germany, I think, in Europe. Abby's crazy ex is amazing. I can definitely see them together. It made me think, what do you think is the type of the main characters on the show? Gibbs, Ziva, Ducky.
Ooh.
Okay, so I think Gibbs' type is his late ex, Shannon, and later seasons, of course, when Pam Dauber came on the show, were probably his type. I know that when he was brain gaming with Jamie Lee Curtis, that was, I think he likes strength, first and foremost. I think he likes humor and people who will meet him at his level.
But let me say this. The younger Gibbs had a very beautiful, vulnerable, sweet wife
Yes.
that he protected. And so it was, I think as he got older, I think he was able to be inspired by obviously different types of women. And that's also very nice.
I think you and I know each other's types. We got a spinoff that we're going to make all about it.
You're my type.
You're my type too.
You're my type.
And I think McGee's type is, again, explicated through the show. I think that ultimately beautiful Delilah shows up and gives McGee, it gives him his heart, gives him that real grounding and that sense of, strength and that what we all hope for when we find our other.
Johnny, Carlsbad, New Mexico. Abby is definitely Gibbs's Achilles heel. Do you think Gibbs loves Abby more than Tony, Ziva, or McGee? I think we've answered that question.
You know what?
I don't think there's
no favorites.
No, I don't think so. I think there's no favorites here. I think there's a lot of love to go around, and I think as a father, he will protect all of his chickens, and I think he shows us continuously that he does.
That's what a fox does, is protects his chickens. Wait, that's not what a fox does.
Gibbs rule of the day, rule number 16. Do you know? Do you know which one it
is? Always wipe twice.
Oh, God. If someone thinks he has the upper hand, break it.
What?
I'm going to take I can't even, this one's a hard one.
Yeah.
This one's a hard one.
I do not advocate violence just because you think somebody has the upper hand. But these are Gibbs' rules. These are not my rules or your rules.
I don't, it's very funny. This one doesn't resonate with me. There are some that sort of come in and I have a lot to say about. This one, I'll just read it. I'll let other people sort of go hey, what are your thoughts on this? I have very little thoughts on this. I just don't share in this particular.
Right. I mean,
it just doesn't, I'm it's a little intense. It's a little on the aggressive side. And
yes,
depending on the circumstance, I would agree. But just reading it, it scares me a little bit. So I think I'm just going to transition out of this.
Right. I come from a more Roger Moore place with my, if someone has the upper hand, find a way to silkily, smoothly get the heck out of there. I'm not sure I did that the other night at dinner, but I tried.
Michael Weatherly, what are we doing next week on Off Duty?
Cody, before I tell you about next week, I just want you to know, in the 1,000+ episodes of NCIS that exist in the universe, if you want to watch them, you can go to Paramount Plus and you can watch NCIS, NCIS Hawaii, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS Sydney, and all of them live on that beautiful streaming platform.
It's called the Weatherly Plug Machine, and he is here and he does it well.
They were going to call Paramount Plus NCIS Plus at one point. And if you want to watch new episodes of NCIS, of course, you go right on over to CBS or wherever NCIS airs in whatever country you are watching or listening from. Now, next week on Off Duty, a drug seizure for the team goes disastrously wrong when the suspect dies in Ziva's custody. Things escalate further when Jenny Shepard is kidnapped by the man's brother, who contacts NCIS with an ultimatum. His brother and the drugs must be returned to him within 2 hours or Jenny will die. Sheesh. Why can't we just be friends? It's season 3, episode 22. Jeopardy.